Welcome everyone to the next installment of the Collaborative Circle presented to you by the Long Island Collaborative Divorce Professionals. I'm joined today by my friend and colleague, Elizabeth Vaz. Liz is the founder of the LICDP. She's a collaborative divorce attorney and a mediator in her own practice. Liz, good morning. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me.
We thought today that we would take a few minutes to discuss some common questions that come up, especially in a consultation with a prospective client, some concerns that are pretty common when it comes to choosing whether or not the collaborative process is right for you and your spouse. And Liz, I don't know about you, but I find that one of the most common questions is the concern over the cost of the process. People are always very concerned. I hear over and over again that this sounds great. I would love to do this. I think this would work for my family, but I don't think I can afford it. Is that something that you hear very often as well?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's a very common concern. And the reality is, especially here on Long Island and obviously across the nation, but here specifically on Long Island, it is very expensive to live here, right? The cost of living is very expensive. Our salaries aren't necessarily keeping up with the pace of the cost of living. So that when you come right down to it, the affordability of this process is a real concern for people. So just like you, I hear, wow, this sounds like the actual process would really benefit my family. This sounds like a real benefit to me, but how can I afford it? Right. So having those conversations about what it means to go forward with each having your own attorney, pulling in two neutrals, and being able to afford an entire team model. It's really an education process and discussing with the clients. The most important thing to remember is that while it's not cheap, right? We'll never say that it's a cheap process because it's not. That's just the truth. It really is a different and better way to spend your resources. When you walk into an attorney's office, right, we have, let's just say, one party comes into my office today and the spouse goes into your office tomorrow and they hire us for a litigation case. We can sort of gauge, again, depending on the circumstances, we can sort of gauge how much time, how much money this is going to take. But if we're going to go down the litigation route, we already know that we're going to be wasting so much time and money. And that's money that they're still spending, but it's not going to be money well spent and it's not going to be focused on their interests. So it is a difficult conversation to have, but I feel like really educating them about the process and getting perspective of other professionals like you, like our mental health professionals, like our financial neutrals, really having them reach out to them and get their perspective is invaluable.
Yes, I agree. That is definitely the first thing I say is that it's money well spent, for use of your hard-earned money. And then I also try to explain to them that on the team, we'll do our best to try to divide responsibilities in a way that might be cost effective and to control the meetings in a way that, perhaps we don't have to have the financial neutral join us if we're discussing parenting time and things that don't have anything to do with money and expenses. To try to let them know that there will be an awareness of the cost of all of this and some control over that so that it, stays within their control to some extent.
I love that because that's really, again, that's really a vital piece of it is that we hear their concerns and there's no reason for us to have a full team meeting and have every professional in that meeting, then we won't do that, right? We really want to hear from them and we want to tailor this process to work for that family. If we have a really strong concern or we really feel like that financial neutral needs to be there for that meeting for a specific reason, we're transparent and we explain that to them. But if it's not necessary, then they don't have to be there. And I always say the same thing about the attorneys, right? We're obviously a vital piece of the puzzle here, but there are many meetings that the couple can have with the neutrals and the attorneys never have to be involved. And right there saves a tremendous amount of time and money. So, again, we're always trying to listen to the clients, really understanding what their needs are, what their budget is, and really honing in on trying to make it work for them.
Right. And I know everyone else in our group shares that concern and that awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So moving away from cost, but although in a way it is still related, Something else that I know we hear a lot is, well, I could probably just mediate. I like the idea of collaborative, but mediation would probably be just fine and work for us. Is that something that you hear a lot?
Yeah. And again, maybe if you relate it back to the cost, I hear a lot that, well, I've heard mediation is the most affordable option. So why would I choose collaborative when I could do mediation? And I know that you and everyone on our team, in the collaborative, the Long Island Collaborative Divorce Professionals Group, we're all trained in mediation. And I don't think one of us would disagree that mediation is not a fantastic tool. It works very well when it works, and I highly recommend it. But the truth is, it's not for every family. So while it seems that it would be more affordable for everyone, A, sometimes that's not the truth, right? Depends on the family. And B, sometimes it's really not the right process.
Right.
So really finding out the information ahead of time will save you a lot of time and money. And if you think that you really need more support, where you need that attorney, giving you guidance and really giving you feedback along the way, and your spouse needs the same thing, and you need a fuller team approach, then mediation is not going to work for you. Again, I'm not, none of us are going to downplay the importance of mediation or say that it's a negative, because it's certainly not. We highly recommend it. But really, again, it comes down to educating the potential clients about what's the difference and what really works best for your family.
Right. And there are instances when it maybe is so simple that mediation would be a better choice. And we've all been quite honest about that. And we really try to lead the clients to the right solution for them, the right process for them.
Right. And that's really, again, all the collaborative professionals that I've worked with, again, within our group, and even through the International Academy, right? Internationally, who really are very, very devoted to and committed to really, honing in and specifying what it is that this family in front of us needs, right? There's a very formal process, the way the collaborative model works, but we can always tweak it, right? Because every family is unique, and every family might need a little bit different support in one area than maybe another. So just like you said, if they come in to any of our offices and we really see mediation really is the way that it's going to work for you, we'll certainly recommend that. We believe very strongly in collaborative over litigation, because there's very few families that I think really benefit from litigation. But when it comes to the different nuances of staying outside of court, we are absolutely here to support the family's choices when it comes to that.
Right. Something that will often come up in a consultation is when the client will say, well, I'm worried that if this collaborative process doesn't work for my spouse and I, that then I would lose you as my representative. I would lose the ability to work with you if this all falls apart and we have to go to court. People are very, very worried about that. I know that I try to always alleviate that concern, because it is more likely than not that we'll get them to the end of that collaborative process successfully. In my experience, it is very, very rare that it will fall apart and end up in litigation. Be easy, might take us a long time to get there, but I'm very confident that we will be able to get there. And that's usually what I say in response to that. I don't know if you would agree.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And you're right. It really is very rare for the collaborative process to fall apart. It's not impossible, right? It does happen. But the truth is, when a client comes in and they've, done the intake process, they've answered the questions, they've really spoken to you about their deeper concerns and their issues, they already feel some type of alignment with you, right? They already feel like you're in their corner. So they never want to lose you, right? So be there for me throughout this process, right? And if that's a collaborative process, that's great. But then what happens if something falls apart? And that's 100% understandable concern, right? That if I'm in your corner and then we have to choose another process, now I can no longer be in your corner. So that is something that they bring up. But I think, just like you said, it comes back to educating them, right? And talking to them and explaining to them, even if the process takes a little longer and we have to, go down maybe a different path or, take a little detour, we can still wind up with a fantastic settlement that you're not going to get in court. And I can still be your advocate here in the collaborative process. But the truth is, again, it's about just educating them from the beginning
Right.
buy-in of collaborative is that we will not go to court, because we never want that threat hanging over someone's head. Like, okay, well, if we're not going to sit here at the table and start agreeing to X, Y, and Z, I'm going to court tomorrow.
Right.
Just, we just want to make it clear to everyone that staying at the table really is in your best interest. And you can do that by keeping us as your counsel.
Right. Right. And everyone on the team is always of that mindset that we'll do everything that we can to keep it together and to keep it moving forward.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And we often have to think outside the box to do that. And that's okay. We do that many, many times, thinking of different ways to make things work for the family, give them a little additional time, give them additional support, whatever it is that they need really to keep this process going and keep them outside of the court system. Because once they're in there, they lose all control. So even if we did have the ability to go forward with them in court, which again, we do not once we sign a participation agreement, but even if we had the ability, now we have as a team, not we as professionals, but we as a team and the couple have lost control of the entire process. They've sort of given it over to the courts, and we always want to see them be the empowered parties here, right? We want them to be in control.
Right. Absolutely. And what would you say to a prospective client that asks you what they can do to bring their spouse on board, to bring them into the process, to convince them that this is probably what's best for their family, to bring up the topic at all for the first time? What do you say to those concerns?
That is a concern, right? Because a lot of times I'll have a consultation and one of the spouses are sitting here hearing about collaborative, the team model, the way it works, and they really, it's like it speaks to them, right? And that's fantastic. This will work for my family, and this is what we really need and what we can really use. And then one of the big concerns is, well, what about my spouse? What if they're not on board? And just like we advise with mediation or any type of alternative dispute resolution, it really takes two parties to agree. That doesn't mean you have to come in agreeing to everything. You just have to agree to the process. And then from there, we can go forward. But getting that agreement, getting that buy-in from the spouse is often a concern for potential clients. So one of the first things that I always tell people is, I think that for the most part, it's really always better coming from the spouse, right? To hear from, if I have the wife sitting in my office and we're talking about it, I just think that if the wife is going to go home and speak to her husband about it, then that sort of introduction to the process is really just best served by the wife. And then once she sort of lays the groundwork and gives information about what the process means, what it is that she's learned, I always encourage the wife who's sitting here to go home and speak to the husband, to go check out our website, look up collaborative, look up the International Academy, find out more information about what it means, what it can mean for your family, how much time, money, and emotional heartache you can really save. And then I always give them the opportunity, if they want, just for informational purposes, that I would also speak to the spouse with both of them involved, so that they can see there's no ulterior motive, nobody's trying to hoodwink anyone. We really want them just to be educated about their options. Right.
I do the same, and I find that sets a nice tone from the beginning. This is going to be different. This is not going to be us against you. And I find that really speaks to the parties and makes them realize from the beginning that this is different. This is a different approach.
I like that. I like that the way you frame that, right? This is not us against you. And you're right. It sets the tone right from the beginning that you're not going to find some, litigation shark pitbull attorney, right? That's not what this is. And when they can meet you, I think sometimes it takes their guard down, right?
Right. Yeah. And I say to them, this is what a meeting would be like. We're going to talk just as we're talking now. It's not going to be what you may think that it will be.
Right.
Really just needs to be a discussion, calm, and hopefully that makes them more comfortable.
Yeah, I like that. And that's the truth. These are open discussions, open dialogue that we have about the entire process, and setting the tone like that from the beginning, I think, is absolutely vital.
Yeah. Much different than getting served with a summons and complaint out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Which is why we're about, openness and transparency, because nobody wants to get blindsided by getting a summons and complaint or getting a letter from an attorney,
Right.
again, having that open and honest communication is really important when it comes to couples getting divorced and when it comes to the collaborative process.
Absolutely. Well, Liz, thank you for joining me today. I hope we were able to provide some good information to anyone out there who may be considering the collaborative process. And we invite you all to continue the conversation, to reach out to Liz or myself or anyone else who is part of our group. And you can find our website at www.licdp.com. And we welcome this discussion to continue.
Yeah, more questions, the better. We want to be
Right.
to support you and answer any questions you have.
Right. Thank you, Liz, and thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.